Welcome back to Trading the Markets. No, your screens are not wrong. It's me, Nico Brugge. Bijan is on a much needed vacation of sorts. So Kris, actually, of sorts sounds a little ominous. He's moving. So,
He's moving, yeah.
Yeah, he's moving. It's not like
everybody's favorite vacation.
Exactly. But anywho, I have the pleasure of hosting you, Kris Bullock, aka Blastoplast, today. How are you doing today, Kris?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yes.
Great. So excited to talk the markets. Obviously, we've been in a bit of a sideways pattern. You and I were discussing this on the Discord show that we do for our RV Connect members on the platform and on Discord. As I said, or as I wrote in the copy yesterday, it seems like Hyperliquid has taken quite a bit of liquidity out of the market, perhaps. What's going on? What's the big picture, and what's our bellwether Bitcoin telling us today?
Well, unlike yesterday, where I was convinced that we had a little bit more upside to go, it's funny what a difference 24 hours makes. I now think that maybe the local top is in. I think that I'm starting to see a little tiny bit of a structural change combined with the fact that we've been running for about 51 days, I think, out of the lows. So it's very common around this time frame generally for us to take a bit of a breather. And now it's looking more and more like, I think, what was it, last Wednesday's show? We were just setting all-time highs, if I remember correctly. We had just poked above the previous all-time high. We set a little bit of a higher high the next day after that. And I think that ended up being the local top. I think that that was around day 45 out of that run from the lows. And now we're on a little bit past that, I think day 51. And I think we're due for a bit of a correction, a little bit of a breather. And I think what that looks like is maybe we just sort of come back down to this cluster in the 102, 103, 104 range, somewhere in there, kind of come back down, touch this 20-day moving average, maybe a little bit more, and just sort of settle down for a second, which again is we really need. I mean, you want to see that happen every 60 odd days or so, because that sort of refuels the next run. If it just keeps going up and up and up, eventually it'll run out of steam and it'll just crash through the floor. And nobody wants that. We want this rally to continue for another 8 to 12 months or more. And in order for that to happen, we need these regular touches or regular little breakdowns below the 20-day moving average in order to sort of sustain that momentum. So I'm looking for that. And honestly, that's fine. And I think that's where we're at. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a larger sell-off, a broader sell-off in the rest of the market. Kind of if you glance over, just, you don't have to see all the detail, but my watch list here, you can see, is predominantly red. And this is most of the top assets that I follow, that I kind of keep a close eye on. And as you can see, the majority of them are red. There's a few standouts, which I'll get into. But and so this is reflective of that sort of larger breather, that sell-off that I'm talking about. And so I think once Bitcoin completes whatever it's going to complete, once it kind of comes back down to this cluster here and bounces, then we'll see green across the board again. But for maybe the next week to 2 weeks, even possibly, it might be a little bit, walk away from the charts and just don't pay attention for a minute. Don't look at your portfolio balance. Let it sort of do its thing, and it'll be back soon enough. And so yeah, that's largely where we're at, I think.
And you don't think it's going to break down past 100,000, right? At one point you moved your cursor and it landed on 94, and I was like, I really hope that's just a mistake.
There's always a chance. I mean, sure. If we look at the structure here, so we've got this long sideways structure that has been the predominant horizontal structure going back to really the end of last year. And the mid range of this structure is right around 98.5, give or take. And then, prior to that, we had another support cluster that had established around the 95,000 region. So if it does decide to break down a little bit further than this 103, 104, then we've got the middle of the range around 98, 99. Maybe, people, the even psychological level of 100K can often provide a support level. And then if that breaks down, sure, the sort of the outside scenario in this situation is we do come back all the way down to the bottom of this range at 94. I don't think that's likely. To me, that's sort of the least likely of these three scenarios, but anything's possible. And even if it does come all the way down here, that wouldn't really break the longer term kind of weekly uptrend structure that we're in, that would just be a larger, maybe unexpected correction in a otherwise healthy uptrend. So we can see like the bull market support band that represents kind of the 20-week moving average is in fact all the way down here at this lower level. And so having it come down to weekly support, while not awesome, is also not bad, you know, not like catastrophic in terms of like the larger uptrend. So yeah, anything's possible. But I think the highest probability scenario is 93, 94, you know, and then 90, maybe 100, and then 95, and so on. So yeah, that's what I see happening here.
Love it. Music to my ears.
Yeah,
definitely sounds like a buying opportunity if you have some dry powder. Of course, none of this is financial advice, but definitely seems like an opportunity there. What else are you looking at, Kris? I know I sent you a trade idea from one of our members, Clayton, about ETH. We were talking about ETH yesterday on the Discord show. If you're not already a member, join RV Connect. So yeah, walk me through what your thoughts are on ETH. I know Clayton used a EM indicator, I believe.
An exponential moving average indicator, yes.
Yeah,
so
EMA,
yeah, and this is an indicator that he built himself, basically, you know, how it's got moving averages that factor in crossovers with I think the 20, the 50, and the 200, if I'm not mistaken. I need to double check that. But yeah, and then as various crossovers occur, it flags buy and sell signals, and it flagged a buy signal for ETH on the weekly based on the exponential moving averages. So yeah, I get it. I mean, we had the big upgrade with ETH last week. No, I'm sorry, it was probably the week before. And of course, we had the big rally that came out of it. I like what ETH is doing with this upgrade. I like the fact that, you know, it's making ETH more competitive. It's sort of bringing ETH back to even whatever, an even playing field with the likes of Solana and Sui in terms of wallet functionality and you know, just all kinds of stuff. It's faster, it's cheaper, all of the good things that we want to see from ETH. And the market reacted positively from that, and understandably so. However, there's a little bit, I think, of a caveat for me personally when it comes to ETH. And we touched on this on my show yesterday, Nico. You'll remember this chart. But what I'm looking for with ETH is this is the ETH Bitcoin chart. And maybe we've talked about it even on this show, but like we can see that it's set a series of lower lows every single time it tries to reverse and break out of this downtrend that it's in, and it can't manage to do so. Every time it kind of tries to break out, it sets a lower low, or lower high rather, than the previous time. And right now we've had a big run out of the lows because it has outpaced Bitcoin over the last, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, and that's great. But in the end, all we've really accomplished is a mean reversion back to the 20-week moving average. And so we've still got quite a ways to go to actually reverse this big ugly downtrend that we're in, that you can see is only really kind of picking up steam and getting even more exaggerated and more sort of parabolic to the downside even. And so it's got a ways to go still. Like, it was so structurally damaged that, you know, it really needs to run for quite some time before it can reverse this trend against Bitcoin. And so while we need to see, while what's happened is good, we still have, you know, it needs to kind of do the same thing again. As you can see, it needs to have yet another kind of massive, big, 25% up candle to sort of break out of this and break this previous high that it had set. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for with ETH. You know, I think you want to be careful not to just focus on its USD price. It's like, yeah, we know ETH is doing well against USD, but if it's still looking this bad against Bitcoin, then the answer is still hold Bitcoin, you know, not ETH. So I'm waiting to see the structure ultimately break and get reversed and start trading to the upside. And then I'll be like, all right, let's go. You know, it's time to be an ETH, game on. But we're not quite there yet.
Well, that is good to know, and thank you for that chart because that definitely sheds further light. Because, like you said, you look at the USD and you're like, oh, maybe it's time. Maybe ETH is back. It's been dormant for a while. Solana seems to have eaten its lunch a bit here and there. But yeah, I mean, this chart against BTC really tells a different picture at the end of the day.
It does, and I wish it didn't.
Yes.
You know, I don't like looking at this chart, honestly.
No, and I can't. Don't either.
Yeah, and it will be a very joyous occasion the first time we set a higher high against Bitcoin, which has not happened since December of 2021. So I
Wow.
can't wait for that day to happen. But sadly, we got a little bit of work to do still. So
God,
yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, it feels like at once like yesterday, but also like 100 years ago.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
Conversely, what I
yeah.
do want to talk about is SPX.
Oh,
SPX continues to be the story for me. And yesterday on the show, I was rejoicing because it was up 10%, while most of the market was kind of flat. And yet again today, it's up another 10% and has broken out of this longer. I remember just last night as I was going to bed, I was like, man, it's been at this resistance level for like going on 7 days now. And I really just can't wait for it to break out above this, because it was stopped back from here and it was just kind of stuck. And I'm like, please don't get rejected here. Please don't break down. And I woke up this morning and break out to the upside, up another 10% on the day. Meanwhile, everything else is down or flat. Bitcoin's down, Solana, SWI, XRP. I mean, you name it across the board. All the big stuff is down. SPX up 10%. So again, it's got the wind in the sails. It's continuing to run, and now we're starting to see all-time highs kind of come into the picture. Obviously, we still got a ways to go. We're not we're not there, but like if we can flip this to support and continue building from there, you can see we've got a nice, really solid series of higher highs and higher lows, and this is great price action. This is something that is very sustainable as opposed to just something that's going straight up, because anytime something goes straight up, like hyperliquid, which I'll touch on in a second, it tends to kind of come back to earth a little bit. It tends to retrace a lot of that. But if you can get this steady grind where it's just sort of refueling each run and continuing to go, I'll take this all day long over straight up and down, And so I love this price action. I love that it's building strength. And now we finally got this breakout. So I think again, SPX is something that should be on people's radars. It's proving itself to be a contender in the space. And I love what I'm seeing here. There's nothing else on my watch list that it looks remotely close to this right now. So it's good stuff. Yeah. We can get into hype, which I just touched on, actually.
It's the coin of the week, it seems. I mean,
it is.
All anyone was talking about over the weekend on crypto Twitter. I mean, what's his FUD seems to have made a killing and then lost 90% of it, but still.
Right. No, hype is hype is legit. Hype is not hype. It's no joke. And so big breakout. And it's funny, I've been slowly watching this for this entire uptrend. And, this wasn't sort of a surprise to me, but at the same time, I was obviously kicking myself for not opening a position down here at the lows when I saw it really start to run out, especially when it, broke above its bull market support band here and kind of flipped it to support and continued to run and was really just sort of holding this 10-day moving average all the way up. I was like, man, hype's got the wind in its sails, kind of just like SPX does. And over the weekend and really the last week, it just blew up. And so at the same time, I'm not surprised to see it come back down as much as it has. It's sort of retraced round about close to 40 or 50% of this run out of the breakout. And it's kind of come back down right to its 10-day moving average, almost not even, and has bounced up again since there. So what I'm looking for, I think, with this is it's really going to kind of come down to what Bitcoin does. I think if Bitcoin, if my thesis is correct that the local top is in for Bitcoin, I think we're going to see maybe it even come back down to its 20-day moving average here and likely retrace most of this move. And honestly, that's fine. To me, that would be a really, really good buying opportunity and probably something I would jump into at that point. I think it's a little overcooked still. And since I do think, my predominant base case is that Bitcoin is the local top is in. And so I do think we're going to see a little bit more of a correction here with hype. And I'll be looking for levels down around, 2930, 2950, give or take. And to me, that'll be where I'll want to get back in. And that's okay if it retraces most of this run that it went on. I still think that it's very much full of strength. I think that, it's still got multiples left in the tank in terms of between now and the end of this 4-year cycle, whenever that ends up being. And I think that hype has well cemented itself as a legitimate sort of player in this current 4-year cycle. Like I was saying on the show yesterday, it's got the use case. It's got tons and tons of trading volume. It's generating tons of revenue. It's like a very viable business model, and it's doing incredibly well. And it's talked about nonstop on crypto Twitter. And so, yeah, it's not going anywhere. And kind of the sky's the limit. Now, where that sky is, I don't know. The market cap is already pretty high on it, so we're not going to see 100x out of this, but definitely multiples to be had, especially if we can get, maybe it come back down to this 28 level again or something like that. So hype is absolutely one that should be on your radar if it's not. And yeah, I like it. It's an amazing chart. So yeah.
Well, maybe to a less amazing chart, let's maybe check out Lo-Fi, how the Yeti is doing. As I admitted to everybody on Weekly Wrap Up in our Discord show, I rotated into Lo-Fi right where you see that drop a couple weeks ago. So
Ouch.
I'm still quite bullish on it. I'm still a huge fan. I think it's a fun coin. It's obviously the leading one on Solana, but what are we looking at here, Kris?
Well, yeah. Not I'll kind of skip the stuff going on with SWE and Cetus and all that for a minute. Just looking at this from a purely technical standpoint, yeah, we do have a breakdown here. We've got a bearish crossover on these two moving averages. We've got the 10 crossing below the 20. We've got price now trading below both of them, and sort of the 20-day is serving as resistance right now. So not a great look. I mean, even here when we had a bit of a correction previous to that, yeah, we did get a little bit of a crossover, but price generally held this line. Whereas here, it's much more looking like it's resistance, as opposed to here, it was just sort of floating along, sort of loose support. Here it's much more of a sharper decline and much more of it's ugly. But notwithstanding, I think the fundamentals are still good with this project. I think it still serves to be the premier meme coin for the SWE ecosystem. And depending on where you come out on the side of what you think, how you think SWE and Cetus are handling this hack and navigating through it, and in terms of recovering the funds and that'll sort of dictate if you want to be in this asset or not. But if you are bullish on this, I do think that it will recover. I think that the market has sort of shown its hand in that it's not too down on what's going on with SWE. I think that generally SWE is doing okay. I think that Cetus will come back around, and I think that whether you like it or not, people generally favor making money over decentralization when it comes to the crypto ecosystem. Obviously, there's a large contingent of people who are very vocal about it, who have very strong feelings about decentralization, and rightfully so. I get where they're coming from, and it's completely legitimate. But in the end, I think that there's a little bit of room for nuance in the conversation. And I think that, sure, we need things like Bitcoin, we need things like Ethereum that have millions of validators that are incredibly decentralized. But there's also room in that conversation for new blockchains that don't have as many validators and are trying to sort of establish a solid, framework, a solid foothold. And, they've got to deal with things the way they've got to deal with them. And in the end, I think the majority of the market will favor profit over principles in terms of decentralization, and whether you like that or not, I think that that's sort of just the way it is.
Yeah, and look, it's going to get voted on and all of this stuff. So, I mean, we'll see. But we're talking, at least in this case, about a Yeti that has awakened and decided to found his own coin. So I'm not going to sort of loop in the great questions of decentralization with Lo-Fi at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Any other coins you wanted to take a look at today before we wrap up? If you have any questions, remember, you can drop them in the chat. Although I understand it is one of those sideways trade action days where everybody's just a little bit like, okay, can we just have some sort of significant move one way or the other?
Yeah, there's a few things I want to talk about. And really what I want to touch on, I want to just highlight the idea that in your alt portfolio, we're continuing to see Bitcoin dominance still showing a lot of strength. It had a little bit of a wobble, last week or two when Ethereum went on its run, but it has since sort of recovered its strong uptrend that it's in, and really to me shows no signs of slowing down. And so I just really wanted to reiterate that you need to be very, very selective with the alt positions that you're holding right now, because not very many of them are outpacing Bitcoin. And honestly, not very many of them, I think, are going to outpace Bitcoin over the duration of the next 6 to 12 months. And so I wanted to just kind of go through sort of in a rapid fire fashion here, a number of charts that come up a lot in our shows each week, and just sort of show how they're doing against Bitcoin, and just kind of raise awareness of things that you should be paying attention to. And so let's start with Solana. And for this sort of chunk, I'm going to use my trading alpha indicator that I use a lot, because it's very sort of easy to visualize in rather black and white terms, or I guess green and red, if you will, how things are doing against Bitcoin. And so we'll look at a bunch of alt versus Bitcoin charts, starting with Solana here. We can see Solana doesn't look great. And this is on the weekly time frame. I think it's important to look on the weekly time frame and look at how your alts are doing against Bitcoin. And if they're not outpacing it on the weekly time frame, then probably you shouldn't be in them. And because there's enough stuff that just go be in that stuff instead. And so Solana doesn't look great right now against Bitcoin. It looks rather ugly. It's got all the hallmarks of this indicator of a downtrend. We've got red candles, we've got red dots, we've got a red track line here. And I think Solana is a good asset overall. I think it will, it's not going anywhere in terms of its tech and its importance in the space, but as an investment, purely as an investment, it is not outperforming Bitcoin right now. And I'm starting to get a little bit on the fence of if it will or not in the end. Moving on to SWI. SWI looks better, but largely because it hasn't been around nearly as long. But it's very flat against Bitcoin. It's not like blowing it away by any stretch. It's kind of just trending sideways. And so maybe ask yourself, do I really want to be in this much more volatile of an asset that's sort of this much further out the risk curve when really it's not benefiting me a ton? You'd be almost just as well off holding Bitcoin. Now, I do think that SWI probably will in the end outpace Bitcoin by the end of the year, but it's not blowing it out of the water right now. ETH, we've touched on ETH already. ETH just looks, ETH, this is as black and white as it gets, and it looks terrible.
A bloodbath.
A bloodbath. Moving on to SPX. SPX looks better, but also not, it's not blowing it away. Yes, overall, since its inception, it is blowing it away by literally tens of thousands of percent. So if you were lucky enough to have bought SPX way down here, then it wouldn't really matter what's going on up here. I bought it somewhere in this general vicinity here, so I'm doing okay. But we need to see it sort of break a higher high against Bitcoin, and that then I'll be happy with that. Deep is another one that we talk about a lot on the weekly shows. It's also just kind of doing okay, but it's sort of resting at support and needs to bounce. Fartcoin looks pretty good. Fartcoin, solid green dots, green candles on the weekly, and this is against Bitcoin, so it's continuing to show a lot of strength. XRP is another one that comes up a lot in our weekly shows. And this is, I think, important because it's losing its downtrend. It was holding up well. All those Dino coins had that big run out of the end of the year, and this was one of them, and it benefited from that, and it held up better than nearly all of them, if not all of them, if I'm not mistaken. But as we can see, it's kind of losing it. It's sort of losing its structure. We've got these red dots on the weekly are a definite sort of precursor to a rollover, combined with the fact that it has lost its bull market support band here. And so, I don't know. XRP doesn't look very good to me, honestly. I'll touch on just a few more real quick. WIF is another one that's been coming up as of late because WIF has been doing really well. But this looks ugly to me. It's been doing well, but it's like ETH. It was so broken down to begin with that it has a lot of recovery to do still to really reverse its trend against Bitcoin. And in the last 3 weeks, you can see it's really kind of stalled out, and it's just got pretty much flat candles. And so WIF to me is still not recovered, still not, the darling I think that it once was. And then lastly, I want to touch, let's look hype real quick, and then virtuals I want to touch on too. Hype looks good. As we can see, this looks awesome. I mean, just look at compared to every other chart that we've just looked at, there's obviously night and day difference here. Big green candles, big green, green dots, all of the good stuff. This is what you want to see. Like, this is where you should be. Why have your money in Solana right now when you can be in something like this? And then lastly, let's look at virtuals. So virtuals definitely was like WIF in that it really broke down bad, like really just lost it way more than I thought it was going to, honestly. But since then, it has broken out and reversed every single trend. I mean, it's reversed its bull market support band, big green dots, big green candles, big breakout. And virtuals is actually showing a ton of strength against Bitcoin right now too, and is honestly one of the other sort of standout assets, I think, since the April lows were in. To me, it's made up, by far most of the ground that it lost, and it's showing a lot of relative strength compared to, again, a lot of other stuff that we're seeing. So I think virtual should be on your radar as all. Also, granted, it's going to be further out the risk curve. It's like, I think if you want to have a little bit of AI, tokenized AI exposure in your portfolio, kind of on the bottom end of it, that it needs to go into virtuals, honestly. But this isn't like a big allocation type asset. It's more of a small allocation asset, but one that definitely warrants exposure. So yeah, I really like virtuals right now too.
Yeah, we had a great conversation about it yesterday on the show. So I recommend everybody check that out. All right, before we wrap up, we got time for one question from Michelle D. Kris, what's your take on Aptos? On-chain data seems to be going in the right direction, but price action is disappointing.
Well, yeah. I mean, that sort of more or less answers the question right there. It's like there's a ton of there's a ton of blockchains out there. There's a ton of projects where the fundamentals are amazing, where I'm like, this is definitely going to be something in the future. We need this technology. It's important technology. It's doing good things. There's a place for it. But sadly, with crypto right now, is by and large, it is entirely a speculative market. Outside of maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum and maybe Solana, that's running on some fundamentals here and there. There's maybe 5 exceptions as far as I'm concerned. Outside of that, it's entirely speculative based and hype based. And so it really comes down to price action is king. And if the market likes it and more people are buying it, then more people will continue to buy it. And it really doesn't matter what's kind of going on with the tech, as much as I hate to say that, even, And sadly, this is reflective of that. Like Aptos, this is the Aptos USD chart on the weekly time frame, and we can see, just looking at this indicator, yeah, it doesn't look good. I mean, it's red dots, red candles. It's well in a downtrend, and so to me, you're gonna this is one of those assets where I say you got to sort of check your bias at the door and just sort of go where the money is, because that's unfortunately the game that we're playing right now. Is it all that matters is where the money is, and it's not an Aptos,
Yeah, talk to the Cardano folks is sort of my recommendation. Like, I remember in 2020 hearing about how Cardano was the next big thing and it was going to eat everybody's lunch, and Cardano is still trading at whatever it was trading in 2020, I feel like. So as much as the narratives can be great and the fundamentals seem great, like Kris says, in this type of market, especially so early in an industry like this, it's really speculative driven. And which can be frustrating. Absolutely. It's frustrating to be like, this is really good and no one's buying it. But, we're in a world of XPX 6900 and Fartcoin, like there is no logic per se.
Exactly. And again, it's stupid. I'll be the first to say that. It's totally stupid. But again, I think it's important take this to heart. You need to understand the game you're playing here. And the game you're playing, the game we're all playing, sadly, is not the fundamental game. It's the hype game. And that it just is what it is. And
the fundamental game, I think, is how Rao would say that's mid-curving it. You got to either be the Jedi or the Cro-Magnon man and just be like hype, instead of, the fundamentals say yada, yada. Trust me, I've been down that path and it has not rewarded me kindly.
Yeah, I can't wait for the day that we can play the fundamental game in crypto. Like, honestly, that's all I look forward to. It's going to be so much easier, honestly,
Oh, yes.
because it's so easy to sort of evaluate projects on their fundamentals, but we're not there yet. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll be there next cycle. I said that last cycle too, and still we're not there yet this cycle, but maybe next cycle.
I don't know. I feel like we're in season 3 of Deadwood. The US is
Right.
coming in, taking over. Deadwood's going to get, or
Yeah.
at least the illegal stuff of Deadwood. I feel like we're getting there, but
We are getting there. We are getting there. And someday we'll be able to play that game.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday soon, but just not yet. Not yet.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a perfect place to leave it for the week. Kris, thank you so much as always. Everybody tune in next Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Bijan will be back with Kris for the Discord show, which you can access via RV Connect. And then Bijan and Kris will be back next Wednesday. Although maybe I'll just kick Bijan off and do it again because I have a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah, this is great. I'm happy to talk to anybody. So like,
oh, poor Bijan. The Knicks lost last night. We're kicking a good man while he's down. But Bijan, I doubt you're watching this. If you are, I hope you've turned it off by now. But rooting for you, bro. 3 in a row is possible. So let's see. Go Knicks.
Yeah.
But thank you, Kris. Excited for next week. And stay safe out there, everybody. And don't fuck this up. Talk soon, everybody. Thank you for watching.